and they've asked somebody to come in who speaks Russian, who's a foreigner, so there's more trust, and you have to give a live demonstration of what to do with peanut butter. A few weeks after I was promoted to run a big humanitarian distribution project back in 1993, 2,000 kilometers east of Moscow in the Ural Mountains, my Californian boss in Yekaterinburg called me into his office and told me that we had a problem. The distribution had just started and we were getting lots and lots of complaints about theft, corruption, things like that, and all these complaints were leveled against the local authorities, and the regional governor had called into the office and demanded that a Russian-speaking expat be dispatched to the town of Talitsa to give a live interview on their current affairs program in Russian. And I said, okay, that sounds great. I guess somebody should do that. And then he said, well, we only have one Russian-speaking expat in the office, and that's you. So tomorrow morning you're going to be off to Talitsa and you'll do the live interview and explain what the situation is. Now, I've done live interviews in English, Croatian, French and German in various parts of the world over the years, but the idea of me doing a live television interview in Russian was really quite laughable. It was only 18 months before I'd actually even started learning Russian and at Manchester University, and after a year I could just about order a beer, and so basically in the previous 8 months I've been working in Russia, picked up some Russian, but the idea of trying to defend a programme where everybody was angry was really quite scary. But I had no choice, and so off I went with my driver in a freezing Lada in -20 in through the snow to Talitsa, which is a small town close to the birthplace of Boris Yeltsin, just on the edge of Siberia. And I arrived in this regional TV studio, and they were very, very friendly. There was a very, very nice middle-aged lady interviewer, and she was very, very welcoming. She spoke no English, and we were chatting away in Russian. They were applying my makeup, and I asked if it was possible to look at the questions beforehand so that, I understood them, because I didn't want to look completely stupid in case I didn't understand a question. And she was very forthcoming. She had a list of 6 questions. She asked me the 6 questions. I gave her my answers just to make sure that she could understand what I was saying. Everything was fine. My makeup was done. And then the cameras started to roll. And she gave this very passionate introduction about how this project called Operation Provide Hope. It was a US Department of Defense food project to distribute 1.2 million packages to needy people, including pensioners and invalids and so on, throughout 12 of the 15 Soviet republics. And there was a message on each box. This is a gesture of solidarity from the people of the United States of America to the people of the Republic of Russia in your struggle for democracy. And inside, each recipient got 4 items of food from DoD military supplies. So for example, there'd be like a 4-kilo tin of ketchup or a 4-kilo tin of peanut butter, brownie mix, fish squares, pineapple chunks, orange juice. And because they wanted to do as many people as possible to get the message of support, they decided to cut the rations and only give out 4 items. Now that was fine, except in total, when everything was sent over from the warehouses in Germany, there were 90 different items, and then recipients only got 4. The problem was that most pensioners in Russia didn't speak English, and so it was decided that what they would do is they would have a list of all 90 items and provide a English translation into Russian with an explanation, even with some culturally different foods on how to prepare them. And that was a great idea in theory, but what actually happened when these boxes came is that people would open them and see the wonderful list of 90 things and all the wonderful things that were on the list, and then look in the box and only find 4 items. They assumed that everything had been stolen on the way. And so I was sent to explain the program and how it all worked. So I went through these questions. They were all quite nice and friendly, and I explained everything in the preamble. And then the interview started, and the first question I got was, so how do you justify sending humanitarian aid to Russia when you know it all gets stolen and ends up in kiosks on the black market? Which was definitely not one of the questions that I'd been asked in the preamble. I somehow managed to stumble through that. This is all on live television on the regional news. And then the second question was, this was 1993. He said, we understand that half of this humanitarian aid has gone to Russia for this project, and the other half has been sent to Somalia. And I said, that's correct. Does this mean that the United States regards Russia and Somalia to be on the same level of importance internationally on the global scale? Which again was not a question that was on the list. And so it went on, and I really was quite defenceless, and I did my best to answer all the questions, and I thought I did quite well actually. And then right at the end, just when I thought I'd finished and I got through it all, the interviewer said, in Russian obviously, and now Paul has very kindly agreed to come with us to meet some of the disgruntled beneficiaries who have been really devastated by this project. Haven't you, Paul? And then just put this microphone right in my face. And all I could do was smile at the camera and said I'd be delighted. We then got into a larder, and she was live reporting from inside the car, telling these stories, and they took me right to the end of town to this really ramshackle wooden house, which was looking like it was falling down, and there was a really pitiful old lady waiting on the balcony outside on the terrace. So I have to explain that in Russia you have categories of invalids. So if you're short-sighted, for example, you'd be an invalid of the 37th degree, for example. I'm just making that up. But then if you had lost an arm or a leg, you were blind, you'd be like the invalid of the 3rd degree and the 2nd degree. And invalids of the 1st degree with severe disabilities, and I think also if you'd lost somebody in the Great Patriotic War in the Second World War, then you also qualified for this category as well. So basically, I was taken to this woman, and she'd lost her husband in 1943 in Stalingrad, and then she had lost something else, and she was really, really sort of poor. And she'd been nominated for this project. She filled the qualifications, and she was telling her tragic story about how she could barely get the energy to go to the distribution centre, but imagine her joy when she got this package from the United States, and it meant so much to her, and that this was all fine, and she got there and she got the package and she just about managed to get it home, and then she opened it up and she saw this list of 90 items, and then she opened the box and there were only 4 items in there, one of which was a big 4-kilo tin of something, and it had a huge dent in the middle. So obviously it had been dropped and a dent, and she said this was, after all this, I managed to struggle home, and then this thing had a dent in it, and so I struggled all the way back in again, and I complained, and I said, can I replace it with something else? And I was told, no, not at all, and so I had to come home, and I'm so disappointed, and I lost my husband in the war, and I've had a really tough life, and I don't see why I'm being discriminated against, and surely you can do something. And then this interviewer put the microphone right in my face and said, well, so what are you going to do about it, Paul? And I was like, what to say really? And so I made some explanation that we had 1.2 million packages, we had 1.2 million beneficiaries, and if we replace this one, then that would mean that somebody else would lose out, but I'll take her details, and if we happen to have any left over, then I'll make sure she gets one to compensate for this terrible injustice of having a tin of peanut butter with a slight dent in it. And that was kind of okay, and I got home and I was really kind of exhausted and, a little bit angry that I'd been forced into this position because it really wasn't in my sort of job description. And I went into my boss's office and I said, listen, I did it today. Please don't ever do that to me again. I don't want to do any more Russian interviews at all. And he just said to me, I'm really sorry you feel that way, because just after you left, we had a phone call from Nizhny Tagil, which is a closed town a bit further north, and they've asked somebody to come in who speaks Russian, who's a foreigner, so there's more trust, and you have to give a live demonstration of what to do with peanut butter. But that's another story. You can subscribe to the channel to hear more stories from my new book, Around the World in 80 Disasters, or if you want to go and buy the book, I'll leave the information about how to buy it on Amazon in Kindle or on paperback. Thanks for watching.